VIP hook and intro. Everyone in the town had turned their backs on her. Her family abandoned her, her friends disappeared, and even the people who once promised to protect her refused to speak her name. She had nowhere to go and no one left to trust until one lonely Cowboy saw her standing alone in the rain and made a decision that would change both their lives forever. But what he didn't know was that the woman he was about to protect was carrying a secret powerful enough to destroy everything. Before we begin this emotional Old West story, make sure to like this video, share it with your friends, and subscribe to the channel for more unforgettable cowboy stories. Now take a deep breath, settle in, and let's get started. In the summer of 1887, the small town of Red Creek, Wyoming, was preparing for another dry and unforgiving season when 26-year-old Clara Whitmore walked through the muddy street carrying a single worn suitcase. Her blue dress was soaked from the sudden storm, her brown hair clung to her face, and her eyes carried the kind of sadness people noticed but pretended not to see. Only 3 days earlier, Clara had been the respected daughter of one of Red Creek's wealthiest ranch families. Her father, Samuel Whitmore, owned hundreds of acres outside town, and everyone believed Clara would one day inherit the property. But everything changed after Samuel died unexpectedly. His younger brother, Harold, immediately took control of the ranch and accused Clara of stealing money from her father's safe. Clara denied it, but Harold had already convinced the town that she was dishonest. Within hours, neighbors who had known Clara since childhood stopped speaking to her. The sheriff told her she had no proof of her innocence. Her cousins refused to let her stay at their homes. Even the man she had been promised to, Thomas Bell, broke their engagement and publicly declared that he wanted nothing to do with a woman. Surrounded by scandal, Clara stood outside the general store that evening, holding her suitcase tightly as people walked past without looking at her. She had nowhere to sleep. Rain fell harder and tears mixed with the water on her cheeks. Then she heard the slow sound of horse hooves. A tall cowboy wearing a dusty black hat rode toward her and stopped nearby. His name was Daniel Hayes, a 34-year-old rancher who lived several miles outside Red Creek. Daniel had a reputation for being quiet, stubborn, and distant. He had lost his wife years earlier and had never remarried. Most people considered him a lonely man who preferred horses to people. Daniel looked at Clara for a moment before asking, "Where are you headed?" Clara swallowed hard. "I don't know." He glanced at her suitcase. "Got family?" "Not anymore." Daniel studied her face and noticed the exhaustion behind her eyes. He climbed down from his horse and took her suitcase without asking. "Come on," he said. Clara stepped back nervously. "I can't pay you." Daniel shook his head. "I didn't ask for money. People say I stole from my father. People say a lot of things." He placed her suitcase beside his saddle. "My ranch has an empty room. You can stay there until you figure things out." Clara stared at him in disbelief. "Why would you help me?" Daniel looked toward the darkening sky. "Because someone should." That simple answer broke something inside her, and she began to cry. Daniel did not ask questions. He simply helped her onto the horse and rode beside her through the storm. When they reached his ranch, Clara expected a grand home because she had heard Daniel owned considerable land, but his house was simple and worn. There was a warm fireplace, a small kitchen, and a quiet bedroom at the end of the hall. Daniel placed her suitcase near the bed. "You're safe here," he said. Clara nodded, unable to speak. The next morning, Daniel made breakfast and told her she could stay as long as she needed. But Clara insisted on working. She helped in the kitchen, fed the chickens, and slowly began assisting with the ranch chores. Days became weeks. Daniel noticed that Clara was stronger than she appeared. She knew how to manage accounts, repair fences, treat injured animals, and even ride difficult horses. One afternoon, Daniel discovered her studying his ranch ledger. "You understand numbers?" he asked. Clara smiled faintly. "My father taught me everything about the business." Daniel handed her another page. "Then tell me why I'm losing." "Money." Clara studied it carefully and pointed to several purchases. "Because someone is overcharging you for feed." Daniel frowned. "Who?" She gave him the name of a supplier. Daniel checked the records and discovered she was right. For the first time in years, he realized how valuable Clara's knowledge could be. Meanwhile, back in Red Creek, Harold Whitmore became increasingly nervous. Clara had disappeared, and he believed the accusation would eventually fade into history. But Clara's presence at Daniel's ranch worried him. Harold had not stolen money from Samuel's safe. He had stolen something far more valuable. Before Samuel died, he had discovered that Harold was secretly selling portions of the ranch, land, and keeping the money for himself. Samuel had written everything down in a private ledger. Clara had seen that ledger before her father's death. Harold had accused her of theft because he needed her gone before she could expose him. One evening, Clara finally told Daniel the truth. "My father wasn't sick," she whispered. "I think someone poisoned him." Daniel's expression hardened. "Are you sure?" Clara shook her head. "I don't know. But before he died, he told me to trust no one in Red Creek." Daniel sat silently for a moment. Then he said, "You can trust me." Those 4 words meant more to Clara than he could ever understand. The following week, Harold arrived at Daniel's ranch with 2 armed men. He demanded that Clara return to Red Creek and accused Daniel of hiding a criminal. Daniel stepped between them. "She isn't going anywhere," Harold laughed. "You'll regret getting involved." Daniel's voice remained calm. "I already decided I don't care." After they left, Daniel and Clara began searching for evidence. They eventually found Samuel's old ledger hidden beneath a loose floorboard in Clara's former bedroom, exactly where her father had told her to look. The pages contained records proving Harold had stolen thousands of dollars and had arranged illegal land sales. But there was one more shocking entry: a payment made to a traveling doctor 2 days before Samuel's death. Daniel took the ledger to the sheriff. At first, the sheriff refused to believe them. But when he compared the handwriting and financial records, the truth became impossible to ignore. Harold was arrested before he could flee town. The people of Red Creek slowly realized how badly they had treated Clara. Some apologized. Others avoided her out of shame. Thomas Bell came to Daniel's ranch and begged Clara for another chance. She simply looked at him and said, "You left when I needed you most." "I don't need you now." Thomas walked away, embarrassed. Months passed. Clara returned to the Whitmore ranch, but she did not become the bitter woman everyone expected. Instead, she rebuilt the property and turned it into a successful cattle operation. Daniel remained by her side, not as her rescuer, but as her partner. One autumn evening, Clara stood on the porch, watching the sunset when Daniel approached, with a small wooden box. He opened it and revealed a simple silver ring. "You once told me everyone abandoned you," he said. "I want you to know something. I'm not everyone." Clara's eyes filled with tears. "And what happens if I'm difficult?" Daniel smiled. "Then I'll stay." She laughed through her tears and held out her hand. Daniel slipped the ring onto her finger. Years later, people in Red Creek would still tell the story of the woman everyone abandoned and the cowboy who refused to walk away. But Clara remembered something different. Daniel had not saved her because she was helpless. He stood beside her because he recognized her strength before she could recognize it herself. And sometimes the greatest love story begins when everyone else walks away and one person quietly decides to stay. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more emotional Old West stories. Thank you for watching, and remember, sometimes the person who stands beside you when the whole world turns away becomes the reason you learn to stand again.